Hi everyone and welcome to Lab 8. In this lab we're going to be going through Python loops, that is the Python repeat loops, the if loop and the while loop, and understanding loops in Python and how they can help us save time is the lab objective. So the lab purpose here is Python has two types of loop. We'll be looking at both of them in this lab to make more complex programs, and as mentioned earlier, the while and the for loop. So the task walkthrough here, the labs. So we're going to write a loop which will print 1 to 10. Once we've done this, we need to skip printing the number 5. So we'll do the 1 to 10 first. So let's open VS Code, get rid of the old stuff, and then we will just open a new terminal. There we go. And we need to print from 1 to 10. So we're going to do 4i in range and 1. We need to use 11 because we need to include 10 as well. So we're going to do 4i in range 1, and this is a for loop as you can see, and then we're going to print I here. So let's do that. And as you can see, we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So then we can actually use I. So I in each case is the number. So we can say if I equals 5, or if I doesn't equal 5, then we can print. There we go. So when we run this again, as you can see, it prints 1, 2, 3, 4, it skips 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the next thing we need to do is stop printing and exit the loop after the number 5 without touching the for loop. So what I mean by without touching the for loop is we can't do that. So we need to leave that at 11. And the way we can do this is when I equals 5, we can simply, instead of printing, we can run a break there. And then we can print I there. So as you can see, printing I, 1, 2, 3, and then when it gets to 5, it'll break out of the loop. So this break can be used to break out early. There we go, and as you can see, it gets to 5, oh, I is 5, break. So for task 2, we need to write a program which will generate a random number, then ask the user to guess a number between 1 and 100. And it'll give feedback depending on the answer, so too high and too low until the user guesses the right answer. For this task, we'll need to do input validation to ensure the user has definitely entered a valid number. So we'll be using stuff from previous labs, the if and the lower and higher number. So let's go ahead and do that. So then if we import random for this. Now imports are not technically in here, but random does make it easier just to show you guys how this works. So random.randint, and then we'll say 1 to 100. And then guess is of course 0 to start with. So we'll do while num does not equal guess. So as you can see, this is a while loop here, and we're saying while the number there is not the guess. So while the user has not guessed it, we'll say guess is an integer, and it's going to be an input. Enter a number. There we go. And then we'll say if guess is higher than number, we'll print too high. And then if guess is lower than number, we're going to print too low. There we go. And then we're finally going to say, we're going to do elif there. And then we're finally going to say else, and we'll print U1 there. Okay, there we go. So you can see a nice little if, so if guess number too high, too low, or U1. So let's go ahead and start debugging that. Oh, that was a typo there, my bad. Start debugging that. Okay, so we enter a number here, we'll say 80. 80 is too high, so we'll say 30. 30 is too high as well. 20, also too high. 10, 2 is too low, so we know it's somewhere between. There we go. So 7, so it's got to be 6. There we go, and we won. So we won by guessing 6. So the other thing that we need to do, of course, is a bit of input validation here. So we need to make sure that the guess is correct. So we'll say if guess is higher than 1 and guess is lower than 100, we'll say 101 because 100 is included. So, and then we can put this all in here, you see, like this. So again, we're using nested if statements here. So we're saying if, and then if we input a number that's not valid, it won't go into there and it will just ask us to enter a number again, as in a valid number, which is fine. We can live with that. So let's start debugging that, and we'll enter 8. Too low. We'll enter 100,007, and as you can see, it doesn't say anything. It knows that's invalid. If we wanted to be nice to the user, we could also put an else here and print you've entered an invalid number. There we go, and then just stop that and start it again. So then when we put 1007, it will say it's invalid. If we put 50, you can see it's too low. So we put 70, too high, 60, also too high, 55, 54, and we won with 54. So that's fine, and now it knows valid and invalid numbers. So that's great, that one's done. So if we go to task 3, we can see we need to write a while loop which accepts input from the user. If the input is not 0, we keep accepting the input, and then we add all of the numbers we typed and print the mean. So for this one, we can simply get rid of all this, and then a number, of course, and it's going to be an integer again because we remember that the input only takes strings. So enter a number. There we go. And then we're going to do a list as well. Lists haven't come in yet, but that's okay. We will be going through lists later on. So while number is not 0, we list.append the number. And then number is, of course, int input into the number again. Now, there are better ways we can do the int input with functions, but for now, we're just going to do it like this. We'll be going through functions later on. And then at the end, we're just going to print out the list for now. Okay, so 737. Okay, we've got 737 there. We can also do a sum of the list. There we go. And then for extra points, as you can see, we've now got the sum of the list. And then for extra points, we finally just need the mean. And then we just need len LST, and that will get us the length of the list. So it will get us the mean out at the other end. So if we put 7, 3, 9, 1, 85, and then 0, as you can see, the mean of that is 21. So that's task 3 done. And finally, for task 4, we need to write a program which will print only the even numbers between 4 and 22. We need to use the range function. So the reason we need to use the range function here is because the range function has something special that will allow us to step over numbers. But instead, we're going to do it like this. So we're going to do for I in range. And then because we need 222, we're going to do 23 in there. So it includes 22. And then we're going to say if I, and this is a modulus. So this might be the first time you've heard of this. So this modulus means that if I divided by 2 is 0. So it means if there's no decimal places left over. And then we're going to print I. So we know it's 0. We know there's no remainder here. So that's what this is saying. If I divided by 2 and there's no remainder. So then we're going to print that. like this, and as you can see, it just gives us the even number. Now this modulus function can be a little bit tricky, but then if we say 1, it would just print us the odd numbers, because the odd numbers divided by 2, there you go, would be a remainder of 1. So that's why it gives us those numbers there, because we've got if and then print. Okay, thank you for watching that, and just in the notes here, a loop can be used with range to print a lot of numbers. We can also use x is greater than 10 for the first task to stop the loop. For the second task, you'll need to import the random library in order to generate a random number, which we've already done. And note, this part is out of scope for the exam, but the rest of the answer is important, and it was important that we could generate a random number to go through the rest. Okay, thank you very much for watching that, and I will see you guys in the next lab. Bye bye.